Welcome to Microsoft's Insurance Corner with your presenters Steve Walker, Cloud and AI Platform Specialist at Microsoft.
And I'm Heather Haley, Insurance Account CTO at Microsoft. With this series, we aim to cut through the noise to bring you practical insights on the Microsoft technologies reshaping the UK insurance sector. From Agentic AI to data platforms, the developer experience, security, and the future of underwriting and claims.
This series is designed to give leaders and practitioners clear, actionable perspectives you can take straight back into your organisation. No hype, just real conversations, real expertise, and real value. Thank you for joining us today, and let's get into today's episode. Heather, we are back in person again. It's great to be here. This is not much of an insurance corner, but I think I like the room that we've picked here in the Microsoft London offices.
Yes, I always prefer doing these in person. I know we've got the tech that enables us to do it remotely, but just being able to have a coffee, talk through, discuss, scrum on what we're planning on talking about, it just makes everything a little bit more personal.
And you're right, personal is the right word, because we flowed straight into Sean's episode today after having a good old catch up and seen him in person for a while. Sean, I thought, was fantastic. He brought a very good perspective on how one would approach getting an enterprise agentic use case into production. And he's done that in Microsoft, which is, very impressive indeed. And we've seen it go live in our Copilot 365s, haven't we?
We have, and I would say I'm probably using it on a daily basis. So in terms of his personal ROI, what he's brought to the team, it's been brilliant. Yeah,
I wanted this episode to be inspirational, so to inspire our listeners that if we can get something into production, it can be done. So I think we accomplished that. Let's see what people think. We're very pleased today to be joined with Sean Cox. Sean, welcome to Insurance Corner.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Do you want to take just a couple of minutes to say hi to everyone and introduce yourself?
Yeah, great stuff. So I'm Sean. I'm an account technology strategist. I've been at Microsoft for 3 years and always working with insurance and investment customers. So everything from specialty risk with the Lloyd's of London market through to general insurance, so personal lines, cars, homes, pets, and pensions, asset management too. My role is really about understanding the business challenges or aspirations, how that intersects Microsoft technology, and what can we do to help move customers forward on their technology journey.
Amazing. Sean, we have been excited to have you on the podcast. You've been on a bit of a journey yourself, navigating the Microsoft beast, as it were, and creating your own agent specifically for the insurance team. So we are very excited to understand, what challenges you've overcome, where you started, and just to walk us through a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, sure thing. So I think for me, we talk a lot about being frontier at Microsoft, and I'm sure many of our customers are familiar with that. I still remember the first time I got my hands on M365 Copilot, October 2023, and just using it to summarize what I'd missed, what was coming up. I think as the world's evolved into agents, I was trying to find the right problem to solve for. In the context of what I do, I have multiple customers, slightly different nuances in terms of insurance and what they do, and one size really doesn't fit all in terms of the problems or aspirations that they have. We also have a challenge at Microsoft where there is so much information, many disparate data sources, people reinventing the wheels. There's team sites, chats, channels, SharePoints, OneDrive. So for me, I really wanted to have a way to abstract and consolidate all of this content in a simple to easy way and a conversational output. Along the way as well, we also work really closely with our digital industry advisors, so our insurance SMEs. However, they are a brilliant but finite resource, so they can't spend all of their time with all of the customers. What I really wanted to do was plug into some of their domain expertise and latest thought leadership and bring that to my customers as well. So the vision was to be able to package up all of this content and collateral in a neat and tidy way with an agent front door to be able to actually get it, get the rich insights. It was quite a journey to begin with. I started with M365 Copilot, just doing this for me because I thought I'd find it useful. I shared it with a few fellow ATSs, with my boss and a couple of the account executives and said, hey, I built this thing. I find it really useful. Give it a try. What I was quite taken aback by was a lot of people found the same problems. People were struggling to find information, or the latest version of the deck, or a frontier pitch, or whatever it might be. Or, Heather, if you've got a challenge with a specific insurance personal lines customer, how can you take some of our latest thinking around being frontier and customize and tailor it? That quickly evolved and scaled from being insurance centric, and there's a real demand to make it more financial services centric. So the journey I went on was thinking about, well, what are the sources, the knowledge, the context and tools that need to be plugged into this to make it more effective? So I did a few things. First and foremost, I did a bit of a baseline to understand what exists today. How can I think about ensuring things from 2023 aren't included in the latest and greatest thinking? And I guess, what is the rule around sort of like gold source information, making sure that it's accurate, up to date, and generally aligns with our principles around being frontier. In order to do that, I had to spend a lot of time working with digital industry advisors to say, how do you guys do this? Do you have your own SharePoint? And we found out straight away that there are multiple SharePoints, all with overlapping content.
Yeah.
Exactly. So how do you determine which is the best source or the best version of the slides? Which do you plug into the agent? A good example is there are public websites like the Insurance Times or the Insurance Post that a lot of our customers will be featured in or use to keep their finger on the pulse of the industry, as well as some of our internal documents as well. So I found by plugging into the right documents with a bit of trial and error, testing the agent, understanding the outcomes, and staying in my insurance lane, working closely with our friends in banking and capital markets, wealth and asset management to understand, hey, I'm starting to embed some more information context. Can you just do a bit of a litmus test? Finding that early but iterative improvement is really good. And strangely, the first version of the agent is going to be the worst version of the agent. And it really is about that iterative and agile way to try and build value, play, experiment, fast, fail. Getting it into the hands of the people was what really made the difference. Getting the feedback and making the changes helped a lot.
For all the show notes and resources mentioned by any of our guests, please visit our website at insurancecorner.co.uk. Now back to the show.
Sean, you alluded to it earlier about your tech stack and particular tool of choice that you'd chosen for your agent. Why did you pick that? What were some of the pros and cons of that?
I think first and foremost, at Microsoft, we're fortunate enough that everyone has access to M365 Copilot. So starting there in that builder was the most logical step for me. Initially, I saw this as my own personal agent to help me with my customers and getting the right information. I saw that it could be valuable for others and expanded that. So there are limits in M365 Copilot in terms of the number of sources you can plug into, the number of people you can share as well. This is designed so that you don't have a sprawl of agents. If you and I created the same agent, Steve, it'd be very difficult to tell. So I think understanding, how do you cascade that across the organization is quite important. As I added more and more information and it expanded from insurance to financial services, I started to hit the limit of the number of sources and was starting to have to pick and choose which slides, which tools, which SharePoints, which led me to, we need to find a way to consolidate and centralize some of the stuff and be a bit more tight on how we have our gold source information. I got to a bit of a fork in the road at that stage, and I started to sort of go from no code with M365 Copilot and looking at low code with Copilot Studio. The rationale behind that was that Copilot Studio alleviates some of the restrictions in terms of number of knowledge articles, the types of tools that I could plug into. I was also thinking about my own journeys with customers and talking about their journeys around how do we think about multi-agent solutions. So whilst an M365 Copilot agent was really good at being broad, there might be some instances where you need deep and niche information. So I thought the vision could be an agentic front door with richer content and context and tools connected into it with specific domain SMEs. So rather than having a broad agent that covers financial services, you could have a suite of an insurance specialist domain expert, a banking and building society specialist expert, and finally a wealth and asset management. That was the vision. And at Microsoft, we have our AI transformation officer, Pam Maynard, her team started the AI Ideas Initiative. So in short, if you'd like access to Copilot Studio to build some of these things, you have to submit a business case. Yeah. So what I did is I worked with some of my peers and I said, how are you using Agent today? We've called it Fin for financial services. How are you using Fin today? What do you find useful? How much time is it saving you? Have you used it to prepare for customer meetings, et cetera, and just get a real barometer on what is valuable, what is useful. It became apparent that a lot of people were using it to save time, to be able to take some of our more product and solution focused material and translate that and make that more relevant for insurance. So going through that process and building that business case gave me access to that environment. We have like a zonal approach to access some of these tools, like red, amber, green. Red might be pro code, so not everyone has a computer science background or engineering or knows Python, and therefore perhaps shouldn't access things like Microsoft Foundry to begin with. Vibe coding is becoming increasingly prevalent, but understanding what you're doing and why in the environment is still a super important consideration and should be reserved for our most complex use cases. Amber is around Copilot Studio, is low code, so really accessible and has been a marked change in the last few months. But do we want everyone building agents that are going to sprawl with more sophisticated tools and knowledges out in the ether? Perhaps not. And then, as I mentioned earlier, everyone has access to M365 Copilot because it's a more controlled, safe space. The guardrails are there for a reason. So I went through that journey of starting, in the green, in the easy space and moving into low code. And from the last probably 12, 18 months, it's a journey that a lot of our customers are graduating from as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels for sure.
Absolutely. And I think it's that extensibility into other knowledge sources, the maturity, the indexing, and maybe even using other models. So I found with Copilot Studio, it gave me great access to some of the other models such as Anthropic, Claude, Opus, Sonnet as well. So thinking about the right tool for the job, it's something I talk to my customers about all of the time. We are the AI platform or an enterprise company. We have many tools that can accomplish the same thing sometimes, but having the right tool for the job is really, really important.
Love that, Sean. I think a lot of our customers assume we have access to the full Microsoft technology stack. So it's really interesting to hear about your journey going through almost a request scenario, sort of a suggestions box. I'm speaking to quite a few customers about almost setting up a similar process. Again, with citizen dev being a bit of a dirty word on the market and some concerns around agent sprawl. How did you find it? Did you think that was sort of enabling? Was it a point of frustration? And what would be your sort of recommendation to customers thinking about a similar, going through our zonal approach, for example?
Yeah, I would say that we've got some phenomenal customer zero stories, particularly around our contact center and our engineering-led transformation. But for us to be talking about Frontier, it's important for us to live it ourselves. And for me, it was a really small way that I could start to think about some of the challenges and realities and considerations of adopting the technology. I think it's probably sensible that there are controls, guardrails, and sort of compliance embedded in part of our products. We talk about that quite a lot. So seeing that firsthand with limitations in knowledge source and context and what I could plug in, understanding that I have been given elevated access to Copilot Studio that comes with considerations and how to best use and approach that as well. So there is so much training and guidance, which is absolutely fantastic. I think it was good for me to think about the business case as well. I think agent sprawl, even at Microsoft, has sometimes been prevalent. Everyone wants to create an agent for a solution. But starting with why is important. Why do you need an agent? For me, asking repeatable questions, getting the latest insight, translating things across subdomains of the industry, these are things I do daily, weekly, probably hourly sometimes. So it made it a case for I don't just need to talk to M365 Copilot, I need an agent because it's a repeatable process. So where things are frequent, an agent makes the most sense. The scalability is, I guess, what made me graduate into a different tool set. And I think it's fantastic that we've got that sort of like suggestion box that you alluded to, that AI Ideas Forum. I think thinking about the business case and saying, actually, I've had to articulate the benefit. If there is no benefit, why am I doing it? And I think that's probably something that customers and everyone at Microsoft should consider. If there's no benefit, it can't be technology for technology's sake, if that makes sense.
You've this agent is now in production, and I've seen it in my M365 Copilot, very exciting. If anyone listening today is inspired by this and is possibly intimidated by all the red tape that needed to happen, is there any advice you'd share about how to get it across the line, or just to get started?
Yeah, I think my knee-jerk reaction to that question, Steve, is start where you are. The best way to learn is to experiment with these tools, and it's never been more accessible with the fact that you can build it with a natural language prompt. Build me an agent that does X, Y, and Z. These are the instructions. These are the knowledge sources. That wasn't possible probably 18 months ago. I would say harness the tool. So for me, I was actually talking to M365 Copilot whilst building my agent and getting best practice on how do I think about framing the instructions? How do I think about framing the knowledge sources? What do I need to do when actually publishing it? How do I best test it? So it's almost like a testing window when I'm building the agent, but I almost had a confidant or coach that I was using with M365 Copilot at the same time. And I think finally, feedback really matters. So without the feedback from my peers saying, this worked really effectively, this less so, have you thought of this? It gave me like a mini pipeline of things to bring into the agent itself, almost like a roadmap. So I've been able to say, hey, I've launched new features, there's new knowledge sources, I've now dropped in this content. So that sort of constant feedback loop is really important as well.
Yeah, going back to your earlier point about using AI to build AI, it's strange, isn't it? You're writing a prompt into Copilot, asking how to craft a prompt. It is very strange, isn't it, considering that way?
Absolutely.
Did you find, because obviously through this process of doing Insurance Corner, the podcast, I was similarly using Copilot to give me suggestions around launch activities, campaign messaging. So it became, to your point, my little side coach that walked me through the whole process, best practice, and that was phenomenal.
Yeah, I think the thing I enjoy the most is our customers are trying to sort of live and breathe this technology and getting hands-on. So I felt it's almost incumbent on me to do the same and go through some of the greatness and exciting things we talked about, but also some of the pitfalls and the challenges and the lessons learned as well, because I think it's hard to advise people if you've not been through that same journey yourself. And I think like seeing is believing. So it's been great when my customers have said, oh, I've had this challenge connecting X, Y, and Z into Copilot Studio as a high level example. And I think actually I've had the same. And this is what I've been, and this is how I went about it, and here's how I conquered that. So it's been a really good learning journey for myself as well, and one that's relatable for customers.
If you've liked any of the episodes we've created, if any of the guests have inspired you, or simply if Heather and I have made you smile in any way, we would be eternally grateful if you could leave us a review wherever you download your podcast from. It really does help us out. Thank you. And now back to the show. What do you think's next for your agent then? You want to try and build on that success? What are you looking to do next?
If I'm very honest, I was really thrilled to just have a multi-agent setup that worked. I sort of impressed myself and then wanted to test it. What I'd love to do is expand the knowledge sources. I think the biggest challenge is actually going to be the change management, cultural adoption, and hygiene factors. What do I mean by this? So a lot of the content is driven on a centralized SharePoint. Is it the most up-to-date it could be? Perhaps not. Does it have the latest and greatest content all of the time? Perhaps not. So, starting a campaign to let people know that the agent is here and here's what it can do and here's the benefits myself and others have found, that's probably phase one. Phase two is probably listening to the feedback on the agent in terms of what is it doing well and perhaps less so, and what does that mean to curate and finesse the content. And then finally think about how can this dovetail into other industries or share. So the UK team are using this really well. Teams in EMEA have just started to do so. I'm absolutely certain there's probably overlap of other agents that exist. So how do we take the best from other agents and make it into one central place?
Yeah, I'll go back to your point on the data sources that it's connected to. While it's not your job to write the content, it is your job to curate it and ensure that it's up to date. So, and in Microsoft, one thing we're not short of is, like you've alluded to earlier, is information sources. But yeah, how are you able to tackle that problem then? Do people have to bring it to your attention to say, look, we've got this, we'd like to connect it in?
Yeah, I'd say it's been a bit of a journey there. I think to begin with, there were the chosen few admins of SharePoint that could approve or have documents in, and I think that's a story as old as time, really. We have since sort of like opened the ether or access to multiple people to drop things in, but therein lies the risk, and we're even debating now, how do we make sure that just because you've got some content that is fantastic for you, Is it customer friendly? Does it have any private or proprietary information? Is it accurate in the context of what we're doing? So I think we're going to go on a journey now to make sure we're only curating approved content, and we'll probably have our own sort of sensitivity labeling and tagging approach, reinforcing the good work that we've gone before in terms of what's confidential, what's not, what's accessible, what's internal only, and think about how we surface that. So quite similar to the journeys that people have been going on for the last few years anyway.
Sounds like another agent in the loop there. check things before they're allowed.
I love that. I have to admit, I've been one of your guinea pigs with the agent, and I cannot describe to you how much time it saved me. To your point, which you spoke about at the beginning, we obviously run lots of EBCs, which essentially sort of executive briefing sessions. So lots of sort of that frontier messaging, amazing content. So I firstly thank you because having time back to sort of then curate that and sort of make it more specific has been fantastic. I was going to ask, have you or do you see a potential future where you might start, expanding some retail use cases into into Fin? And the reason I ask that is because I think it's lovely being quite industry specific, and that's where we're connecting dots and bringing our expertise. But working with other customers, they have raised this scenario of we would like to learn from, for example, retail, where they are, customer driven, they're at the cutting edge of, what they're doing from a frontier perspective. Is that something that could be on your roadmap? Something I probably should have fed back to you sooner?
No, I love that. I think for me, this started from really wanting to meet my customers where they are and speak in their language and take what is sometimes, not generic, but Microsoft isms and translate that across. And although it's a bit of a cliche, the unprecedented amount of change we're seeing in technology and AI and agents in particular means that I'm constantly trying to stay ahead of the curve. And I'm sure my customers have the same. Where I'd love this to go is a multi-industry approach, Fin today for financial services. But to your point, I'm sure there are lessons from retail, from consumer goods, and from other areas of other industries as well. So if there is a way to sort of curate and harness that greatness and disseminate it in a nice, easy way, I'd absolutely advocate for that.
Brilliant.
Does Fin have a cute character now as the logo? Because I know we were talking about that.
Absolutely, yeah. It's got its own persona, Fin for financial services, but Fin for also financial information navigator as well. So, I and Copilot have worked very hard on the marketing there.
Fantastic. I wanted this episode to be inspirational for, as I say, anyone listening who wants to try and take up the mantle of building an agent. If you're leaving our listeners with one final call to action, what would that be?
Fail fast in a safe environment, take the lessons and see what you can do. I think, at Microsoft, we have some of the most technical people. We have generalists. We've got lots of different personas and archetypes. I think probably surprise yourself if you get involved with some of the tools as well. So definitely get involved and give it a go.
Sean, we really appreciate your time today. If people want to find you on social media, where can they look for you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Sean as the end of the URL, or Sean Cox.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sean.
Great stuff.
There we have it, Heather. What did you think of Sean Cox?
Oh, I loved it. Again, he just... From my perspective, we talk a lot around frontier. We talk a lot about how organizations should be transforming AI as this really grand topic. And I thought having Sean on today was just such a fabulous example of someone taking the technology and turning it into a real impact. Nothing, and how he shaped it of always being and returning to the concept of why he's doing it, what's it doing, how's it doing it. Sort of, at the end of the day, he's constantly iterating on something he's created to solve a problem that him and his peers are facing on a daily basis. Yeah,
he shows excellent perseverance because he's talked about how he's uncovered more problems. We thought he was fixing one, uncovered 10 more. He talks about when he mentioned about the data sources and realizing there's multiple of them, who keeps them up to date? It's not up to him, but he needs to find the people who own it. It's remarkable what he's done. But as I said before, I wanted this episode to be inspirational, that there is a path forward. If someone does have an idea, we now have the tooling. There's low-code tooling in place to be able to get an agentic use case into production. And I love the way Sean outlined the struggles that he had, or at least the people he needed to have conversations with in order to get this over the line, to be rolled out internally at Microsoft.
Exactly. And to your point about it being inspirational, it's definitely inspired me. to go and get my hands on the tools to start my own agent, obviously starting with why, not for technology's sake. And the main reason from my perspective is very much so I can sympathize, I can understand what our customers are going through.
Yeah. What about crawling through glass? Did you like that quite?
I have to admit, it was a very visual description.
Wasn't it?
And it's probably, based on the beast that is Microsoft and our size, I think that's probably exactly what it felt like, trying to break down barriers, get access, all that goodness. So I think, it's probably the best visual, and I suspect a lot of our customers are going to really, really resonate with that.
Indeed. Brilliant. Okay, let's leave it there. I wanted to highlight, if anyone is listening to this podcast and had perhaps not realized, Heather and I are actually here in person. We do shoot video for each and every episode that we record of Insurance Corner. So subscribe to us on YouTube. You can search Microsoft Insurance Corner. But for now, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.